as Mate said, last time I talked about bacon, but I'm going to get straight to the point this time. I am that bacon guy who saw a talk, and I've gotten a lot of, hey, you're that bacon guy over the weekend, which is awesome. There's something to be said for that, but, you know, bacon, it's beautiful, it's delicious, nutritious, but I'm not going to talk about bacon today. Sorry, because I'm right now, first of all, how many people are having an awesome time this weekend? This has been amazing, right? Woo! Woo! This is my first time in Berlin, and I really want to thank everybody who's put me in a cab. But in general, I'm excited about JavaScript, but I'm really excited about something else, more excited than bacon, if you can believe it. So freaking excited. I spent like the past 2 weeks trying to make this demo. Didn't quite work, but I got almost there. But I was like, I'm working. This is not my full-time job. Full-time, I'm working at a real company, and I've been like sneaking away hours from actually writing company code to write some stuff here. This is going to be on the internet. I probably shouldn't have said that. Anyway, let's flashback for a second. I wanted like some tie-dye here, but I couldn't find like a good tie-dye slide, so this is good enough. September 2009, so long ago. I gave a talk at jQuery Conf, right? Pretty soon after I released Sammy and some people started using it. First of all, how many people have ever used Sammy in the room? How many people know what it is? Okay. How many people were at Frank's talk on Thursday at Berlin JS? Okay, cool. All right, anyway, so Sammy is a simple library that I wrote. I'm going to go more into describing it later, but basically in, I guess that's a little over a year ago, I gave this talk at jQuery Conf, and I wrote a blog post too that got on Hacker News, and I had to fight off some trolls. The basic premise was that I wanted to envision, not that I was the first one to do it, but I felt like we had tools now where we could envision this world where you weren't writing server-side code anymore, really. Like, front end, the difference between front end and back end would just be divided. You'd write your application logic, you'd have Sammy or some other controller logic and a DOM framework, and then it would sit on top of some kind of REST service like CouchDB or some other really simple REST service that you wrote on your own on Sinatra, but it would be really, really lightweight, and all it would do is basically spit JSON back and forth or some other Marshall data format back and forth between JavaScript and the server. And that layer would be really thin, and then all your weight would be in basically in your client-side code, because now it's actually, the browser's fast enough that you can actually do that. So flash forward to 2 weeks ago. Everyone saw this, right? So when I saw this and I heard about it, I kind of knew I'd heard things in the works about it, but I didn't know exactly to what extent it was going to be. And, I didn't take credit. I can't take any credit for this, but if you've seen new Twitter, all it is it's an API, JSON, sits on top of it. They have a controller layer. They're using some open source technologies. It's awesome. And this is all just HTML, JavaScript. All the server-side code is completely separated and encapsulated away from the client-side code, which is just JavaScript. And actually, I think jQuery too. So I'm not saying I told you, but it's like, told you so, but after seeing all those Hacker News trolls, it's pretty sweet validation, bruh, to get people actually like Twitter, I mean, come on, using something, the same kind of API structure and system that I've been thinking about for a while and implementing too. But what I want to get out of that is that that's not, Twitter didn't just come up with it, I didn't come up with it, and you can also do something like this, and I think it's a really, Twitter, if nothing else, is a proof that this thick front end, thin back end can actually work and work at scale too. So I want to talk about SammyJS. This is the new logo, which I'm pretty psyched about. Got the little hashtag in the microphone. So SammyJS is just a simple client-side framework that I wrote based on jQuery. It's small. Its core minimized is 15K, which is growing a little bit. It actually used to be a little smaller, but we've added some things. But it also has a plug-in system, so anything you don't need that's not in the core is usually in plugins, or you can write your own plugin and plug them in. But that's, of course, sitting on top of jQuery, which isn't that small, but assuming that you already have jQuery in your app or in your couch or whatever, it's pretty small. It's also pretty powerful, or at least I think so. I've written some pretty significant apps on it. I know a couple other people who have too. It gives you this plugin structure. It gives you template rendering. Basically, it's really the controller layer on top of which your code sits and is contained and is trying to be organized. And it gives you a lot of extra little bonus beats, which I'm going to go into in a sec. It's also really simple, or at least I think it is too. It really has a clean API, especially if you're coming from Ruby or coming from some other language where you're used to kind of RESTful structure. It should just be pretty easy to grasp and understand. So okay, I'm going into a tangent now. So API, application programming interfaces. I love APIs, like seriously love them. I love writing them, I love dissecting them, but most of all, I feel like I'm an API designer. Even at my day job where I'm working in Ruby and working in JavaScript and Sammy and working with a team of developers and not just by myself, the way I usually work is my favorite part is designing the API, designing how other developers and other tools will interact with this code, and then, actually implementing it, I get some thrill out of that, but really it's making something clean and beautiful that I'm really psyched about. So, to express that in code for me, clean and clear is greater than cool and compressed, and specifically something that's fun, at least API design for me, and working with a clean API that's well designed is way more nice and more fun, and I'd much rather do that than working with something that's maybe not the cleanest or not the most standard, but is super fast. So, does anyone know who that is? Mats, yeah, that's Yukihiro Matsumoto. He's the creator of Ruby. How many people here write Ruby at all, or do a little bit of Ruby? Cool. So, Mats did this. Mats created Ruby like 10 years ago, or actually more like 12 or 15 now, and he's from Japan, and he used to be a Perl and COBOL programmer, and he took what he thought were the best parts of Perl and Smalltalk and all these other languages and made something that he thought was, beautiful. That was his goal. He said, I'm paraphrasing, but he says he wants to optimize for developer happiness. That's what his goal as writing Ruby is, which is very different than other languages' goals. Other language is often optimized for speed on the server, or optimized for, speed of development, like code generation tools. He's really into just making code fun to write. And he thinks that if you're going to sit at a computer and write code all the time, you better be having fun, which I really appreciate, and I kind of follow that same methodology. So that's the end of the tangent. So maybe that gave a background to what I'm going to talk about, which is Sammy's API. So this is a really, really brief example of what a Sammy app looks like, probably the simplest possible example. So, and also this is the latest Sammy that I just pushed like 2 weeks ago now. So you initialize Sammy, which is just an app, and it takes a function, and the function has a bunch of different APIs within it, or an application has a bunch of different APIs within it. Specifically, it has the main API, which is routes, or what you call routes in Europe, and the context of the Sammy function, which you're passing, is the Sammy application, and inside there, you're defining these routes. So a route is basically a RESTful route. It responds to HTTP verbs like get, post, put, delete. You can't actually do delete because it's a reserved word in JavaScript, so it's del, but just so you know. When you define a route, you're giving it a path, and then the verb, which is get, and then the actual route context itself, or the callback here, which inside of that is an event context, which is another nice little piece of code. And what that does is it abstracts some of the things that you would do working with an app, like redirecting, loading templates, changing the location. I'm trying to think what else. Basically anything that manipulates the state of the page. So basically what happens is when you run this, it'll go to # or // And then when that event happens, or when it goes to that route, Sammy will pick it up and then run this callback. So in this case, it's going to run this callback in this event context, and then inside of the event context, we're using this new thing called render context. And what render context does is abstracts the deep template manipulation that you often have to do in these single-page applications. So I'm going to go more into that, but what do you guys think? It's pretty simple, right? I mean, maybe I didn't explain it very well, but if you go, there's good documentation, you can go check it out. But in general, the API is pretty clean, I'd say. Like, it looks a lot like jQuery. It's pretty easy to read. You have a pretty good sense of what your context is all the time. And my main goal is trying to encapsulate everything possible into these routes or into events so that you can actually, you know, as a developer who didn't write the original piece of code, he can go back and look at this and instantly understand that when I go to /, it's going to do this below, as opposed to having kind of a mess of events or bindings and stuff like that. It's pretty simple. So right now I just released Sammy 061, which is like a, actually I released that today or yesterday. Sammy 06 came out 2 weeks ago, and the big thing from there was what I was talking about, the render context. So a render context, the biggest complaint that I got from a lot of developers working with Sammy was, you know, especially when you're dealing with getting data and then getting templates and having to interpolate and render templates, you have this kind of, a lot of people have been talking about this all day, but the pyramids or the nested callback structure. So here, you're getting a partial, and then inside of it, you're swapping out some HTML, then you're getting some JSON, and then taking another template and interpolating that here with mustache, right? So for each of those items, you're rendering it and appending it to a list. So the new way, here, let's just, you can flip back and forth. Sexy, right? So the new way is very heavily inspired by promises and sexy.js, which is a really cool library, and a bunch of other tools that abstract this kind of nested callback style into chaining and into kind of an event queue. So what happens here is render actually right here is actually a asynchronous call. It goes in, it gets the mustache template from the server, then it replaces the main object with that previous content, then it renders this items.json thing, which means it just takes the JSON and takes a JSON file and turns it into actual JavaScript object. Then with each of those objects, it goes in, gets the mustache template, and then appends it to the UL. So basically, it abstracts working with asynchronous or asynchronous doing something, then doing a callback, and then you just get it back as content to the next call. Basically, it's not blocking. This whole thing isn't blocking, but this call, even though it gets put into a queue, won't actually be executed until that mustache template gets back, which is pretty nice. And you can do some pretty complex stuff with this and still keep the code really clean. That's pretty small, but you can go and check it out. But this is the entire render context API. You can then and next and wait are kind of the basis of it. Then add something to the queue or add something to the render context. Next skips to the next context. Wait blocks until a next is called. Load and interpolate and render all take not only strings, which refer to files on the file system or remote files, but they also now, this is really exciting, take jQuery objects or DOM objects. So that means, which I'll show in a little bit, you can have your templates already on your page in script tags or in hidden elements, and then just pull them out and place them somewhere else and do the interpolation without having to make all these asynchronous calls to the server. But they behave in exactly the same way, and the chains look exactly the same between doing it asynchronously and not doing it, and doing it synchronously. So what about apps? Everyone wants apps these days. So SammyJS and CouchDB, we're like best friends. We're boys. Michael, he's my boy. Jan, he's not here probably, but he's my boy too. He's here. He's in the back. But yeah, SammyJS and CouchDB have had a long, not dramatic, but fun relationship together. We've gone to parks, taking a swim. It's been nice. So anyway, but what did you say? Yeah, I love you too. Okay, anyway, sorry. So anyway, a while ago, actually, Alex Lang, who's at this conference, and he's a Berliner, he runs Co-op. He started working on a couch app, which at that point I hadn't even heard of, using SammyJS, and he actually presented last year at JSConfEU and showed off some of the stuff that he's working on. And he's going to be talking in, I think, an hour upstairs and showing off on his cool slide application too, which is built with Couch and Sammy. So anyway, they're best friends because if you're looking at that model that we looked at before, CouchDB can be this RESTful data store to SammyJS's front-end controller and front-end logic. So an example of this is Swinger. So I'm just going to exit out of here. But this slide application, it's a little cut off here, but this is actually a Sammy application. All it's doing actually is there's like a little markdown screen here, and I can type in, and it'll preview there. And then when I save this, it actually saves all the slides to CouchDB. And there is no server-side code in it, 0%. It's all saved in CouchDB, even the application, like all the application logic, the CSS, the HTML, it's all in CouchDB, which is awesome. So Michael talked yesterday about couch apps, and he went into the Node side of that stuff, which is cool. Here, let me start this up again. That's all open source too, and there's actually, it's online and you can actually play with it and check it out. But anyway, so Michael talked about it yesterday, and basically, how many people here know what a couch app is relatively, or was that we're at Michael's talk yesterday? But yeah, basically it's just a design document, and a design document is just a JSON object. And that JSON object is just this big blob of all this data as attachments, which are just base64 encoded, binary data like your HTML and like your JavaScript. And then they're more than that. They're the views, the stuff that you use to query the database, and they're any custom logic you want to write into CouchDB, but they're all encapsulated in a single JSON document. And the beauty of that is that you can take that JSON document, just write it to disk. You can replicate it from another server. You can do whatever you want with it. So writing couch apps should be really easy, right? It's just a JSON blob. You should be able to just build that blob and push it and do whatever you want with it. And it is pretty easy. But there's a tool called Couch App, which is written in Python, and Benoit, who's here, wrote it, or maintained the original version, maintains the version, and works on it still. And I love Couch App, and I love the idea of Couch Apps, C capital and A capital, which doesn't come across on this, but I mean, the Python tool is awesome, and I really like it, and I've used it. Swinger is written with the Python tool, but it didn't fit my needs. My needs were a little different. I liked the way Couch App worked, but I didn't want to have different directories that map directly to JSON objects. I wanted to have my own /JS directory, and I wanted to use the tools that I was used to working with in developing back-end services, like Compass or Blueprint. How many people here have heard of Compass? So yeah, so Compass is a Ruby tool. It's a for writing style sheet. It's a style sheet framework. So it gives you a really base level of style sheets, and it generates out this awesome, like you can just start off and have basically a working style sheet with Blueprint, with whatever else, and it's written with SAS too. And I love working with it, and I wanted that. And I also wanted Gem, which is this JavaScript install manager thing that I wrote. Instead of Gem, it's Gem. And I wanted to use like other little Ruby tools or any kind of tools and have them kind of hook into the whole process too. So I created Sokka, which I'm calling Sokka Sammy on Couch App. It's a horrible name, but I couldn't think of anything better. If you have a better name, tell me, I'll rename it. So Sokka is a Ruby tool for making SammyJS on CouchDB easy. That's really the point. And not just any JavaScript framework, but specifically Sammy, but you can really use anything with it. So another tangent. I know you're all like, fucking Ruby. It's written it's a Ruby tool. But seriously, it's not that serious. You guys gotta chill out. That's 50 Cent. I don't know if you can see that. But anyway, I'm a polyglot. I like writing in a lot of different a lot of different languages, and I like Ruby, I love JavaScript, and in the end, I know there's a lot of, I've written a lot of Ruby tools that work on JavaScript, and I've written a lot of other kinds of JavaScript tools that work with Ruby, yada yada. The point is that it doesn't matter. We're in an age where that shouldn't matter. I mean, obviously Ruby doesn't run on a server, but Ruby runs on your machine. It's on your laptop right now if you're on a Mac. It's already there. And it's made for writing these scripts. I don't want to have to write a nested callback node script, even though I could for this, but it's a synchronous operation. I'm just doing stuff and pushing it to the server. It's okay if it's Ruby. So anyway, that was that. So Sokka. So all Sokka does is it has a generate tool that generates a simple structure. You write all your JavaScript, CSS, HTML using Sammy, Compass, or any other Ruby lib or JavaScript lib. You build a JSON document, and then you push it to your couch. So this is the basic workflow of making a Sokka app. So you Sokka generate my app, you CD into your app, you edit the app.js, you push it, and then just opens it in the browser. Really simple. So the applications themselves are just Sammy apps, but with access to CouchDB, and they're just like Swinger and New Twitter, they're 100% client side, or really basically 100% client. So let's just have a look here. I'm gonna try to do some live demoing, and we'll see how it goes. So I'll exit out of this. Okay, so this is a Sokka app my first demo app that I've been working on. I'll give you guys a peek at what it looks like. Sorry, my screen's a little small. But yeah, it's like a really simple, it's a little cut off. It's a really simple to-do list thing. But it's a little more than that. It lets you write these things. It stores it all in CouchDB, obviously all your tasks. So like, let's talk about Sokka in front of board audience. Okay. So I hit enter, it just posted it to the server. Now it's saved in Couch. What I'm trying to actually do, though, which is a little different, because I thought this is probably my 5th to-do list manager that I've written. Who here's written a to-do list app? Woo! All right, awesome. So what I started to realize was writing, I'm not going to go deep into my thoughts about why I wanted to do this specifically, but basically what it's trying to do is actually parse out the important information from what you're saying and then turn it into actual meaningful tasks. So here, talk is the verb. So if you hit talk, it'll just show you all the things that you have to talk about. If you hit write, it'll show you all the things that you have to write about. And you can see the URL changing. This is a Sammy app, so it doesn't actually reload the page ever. It's just using Sammy to do that. I have to email Roid Rage and ask about coffee places and call a wife and tell her how awesome it is. Well, I finished this, so I'll close that. But it's a really, really, really basic app. There's a lot more to do in it. I wanted to actually do a lot more before JSConf, but I didn't have time. But anyway, the point is, I'm running out of time. So the point is that this is all in Couch. Everything is in Couch. The idea would be, in the demo that I tried to do but I couldn't get working in time, was you write your to-do list on your machine, you log in, you take your soon-to-be iPhone, hopefully, or your Android, you go on your couch, you just hit a replicate button, and it will download not only the application, but all your to-dos too. And then you get home, you get back online, you do replicate up, it goes back up to CouchDB. That's the beauty of Couch apps and CouchDB in general. So let's just look at what a Sokka app looks like. So here, I just have all my JavaScript here. Here's my app. So the app is actually really simple. Change the colors. Oh, God, it's dark. Okay, sorry, hold on. Yeah, is that better? Okay. It's transparent, which is sweet. All right, hold on. Classic text mode. Okay, is that better? Yeah. Okay, cool. So you start your app. You're loading all your plugins. There's some simple helpers here. This stuff is just to build the token JavaScript, which is a little ugly, but it's not crazy. I'm binding to events. Here, I'm just starting up my app, and I'm loading a template from a jQuery object, which you can see there. So if let me go up here. So index.html actually has the templates directly in the code. I'm not actually ever fetching them from the server. So when this app comes down, it's just a single HTML page. I only am making remote requests for data and not for templates, which is nice. So let me just show you some of the cooler stuff. So if I go in here, I'm in action. Let me just make sure I'm not doing this already. So there's another command here, which is kind of what Michael was talking about yesterday, where there's an auto push. It even throws you a little growl thing saying that it pushed. But basically all it's doing is it runs these hook files. So that was the after push. It's literally just shelling out to growl notify. But then I'm including these plugins like Gym and Compass. I'm not going to go into Gym, but basically what it does is it's like a bundler for JavaScript. So here are all the files that I'm requiring, and then it actually goes in and bundles it all up into this default JS, which is a single file, which is better, or this production.js where it runs it through Google Closure Compiler too. So then just to show you how cool working with, this is SAS or SCSS. So this is kind of what Compass generates, and it's I'm not going to talk about how awesome SAS is and Compass, but it gives you all these helpers and makes CSS a little easier. Okay, I'm seriously running out of time, but this was pretty much the end anyway. So let me just show you what working with, even though this is this SCSS, what doing this would look like. So okay, so see how you can't really see the dates are really light, they're hard to see. So let's say when you hover over that metadata, it's gonna make it a little darker. So SAS is awesome. You get variables and also basically functions and includes. In the end, it just generates CSS, which is sweet. So let's see, color, dark gray. Okay, save it, and I should get a notification that it bundled and pushed everything up. Okay, so now if I refresh this, cool, there it is. Really simple. The idea, okay, so that's Sokka. Action 2, this app is open source, and I pushed it to GitHub, so you guys should check it out and help me make it even better. The parsing is kind of gross, but that'll get better. Okay, so I just exited out of that. Let me go back to the slides. Okay, so cool. All you have to do is that if you have a Mac, you can do this right now and it should work. There's a bunch of more good stuff coming. Sammy.couch, which is actually the wrapper around the CouchDB stuff that I put up there. It's in part of Sokka now, but I haven't written tests for it or done the awesome stuff. Yeah, I also just wanted to show you that Sammy also has a really awesome test suite, so that's why you should use it more than anything else. It's green, and it has like all these tests for all the different things that it does and all the plugins. So written in QUnit too, so you can go in there and hack on it as well. But anyway, that's about it. I'm really, really excited about this, and I hope people will just play with it and give me feedback, because it's really, really fun. The applications that you write are really small, and there's not that much you actually have to do to get something running on Couch and be able to access its data and use Sammy as this kind of controller framework logic in between. And I'm sorry, there's no bacon, and I know it's late in the afternoon, so woo, Berlin. Thanks, everybody. Do I have any time for questions? Not really? That's all right. 1 minute. Anyone? Question? Quick?
Would you prefer SAS over SAS?
SAS has Compass. I like Compass. Yeah. I mean, Compass is awesome. It has the blueprint framework, and you can just literally, you should see how little, look how little SCSS I wrote to get all those styles. It's awesome. And it gives you an instant framework of just getting this stuff done quick. Cool. Thanks, everybody. Come find me later tonight. Talk to you.